of God. Thanks be to God, and I'll be seated in the very presence of God. We read this last Sunday, we read it again today. And our focus was from verse 10, when God said, put a difference between holy and unholy. A difference between holy and unholy. You know, we have been bombarded with one tragedy after another, one mass shooting after another. Police killing black men killing police, corruption everywhere. And I was thinking about all this and said, Lord, what can we do? What is the church's response in the midst of all of this tragedy and suffering and misery? And the Lord put in my heart that the church's response is to be holy. That's our response, is to be holy. But the problem is, it's hard not to tell the difference between holy and unholy. You know, there once was a time there was a clear difference between right and wrong, between good and bad, between fair and foul, between the church and the world. But now that difference is beginning to disappear. When God created man and woman, and God put an unmistakable difference. An unmistakable difference between male and female. But nowadays, and I'm so glad I'm not single now, out there in the dating world, because now you got men running around looking like women, and women are running around looking like men. And that difference is beginning to disappear. But God said for us to put a difference between holy and unholy. That's the church's response in the midst of all this trouble and tragedy and triumph. God is calling on us to be holy.
Yes, He is.
And so He said, put a difference. That means separate. How many people in here are holy? Yeah, keep doing it. I didn't see a whole lot of these. I said, how many folk I saw? That's what we're going to talk about today. You know, there once was a time when we, especially in the Baptist church, were afraid to say we were holy. We didn't want to say we were sanctified. If you called us holy, that was an insult. But God is calling for us to be holy. And He said, put a difference between holy and unholy. And if there was ever a time the church needs to be holy, it's right now. Because the world that we live in now is filled with darkness and evil and iniquity and unholiness everywhere you look. How many folks know what happened last Monday? Last Monday, the Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden, performed a same-sex marriage for 2 male White House staffers. Former President Jimmy Carter, who's been active in the National Baptist Convention for years, and is a teacher, a Sunday school teacher at his church, went on record as saying that he believed that Jesus would approve of gay marriage. I looked on the internet and I found where 8 Christian denominations are now sanctioning same-sex marriages. I mean, they are performing same-sex marriages in the church. And so God is calling for us to put a difference There is a difference between holy and unholy. Now, a lot of you are a little bit reluctant to raise your hands when I asked who was holy. But we first got to understand what holy is. You see, holy is not a list of I don't do's. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't cuss, I don't run around, I don't gamble, so I must be holy. But holy means set apart to be used by God. The word holy means set apart to be used by God. Your holiness is not based on a list of what you do or don't do. You're holy because you have been chosen and set apart to be used by God. Now, because you are chosen, because you are set apart, there's a certain lifestyle that accompanies being holy. But you are holy. You know, I was raised in the Church of God of Christ, and I said, when I grow up, I'm going to be anything but saved. I thought I didn't never want to be saved. Because all I heard was what we couldn't do. There were so many rules, so many restrictions. And I said, when I get grown, I don't want no part of this. Thank you, Alex. But holiness is not based on what you do or don't do. You are holy because you have been chosen and set apart by God. Now the church